What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers, and we have reached out since 2020. Over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. I'm patiently waiting for the stats to be calculated so I can get to share with you 500,000. So as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem. And we are doing our first Black Canada Talking of 2026. And we can't do it without our good friend, our good man about town around the world, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. How are you, Cesar? And Happy New Year to you and your family.
Happy New Year, Dr. Vibe. Thank you always for having me. And salutations to our sisters, our brothers, and allies worldwide. Always a pleasure to be here with you.
Good, good, good. And what did you spend time doing over the holiday season, if anything? I hope you got some relaxation.
Yes, I did. Good time spent with family. We had family from BC that came over in Ottawa with the in-laws. So yes, it was nice. Yes.
Excellent, excellent,
What about you,
excellent.
Dr. Vibe? What about you?
Well,
How are you
oh,
on
look,
this?
someone asked about me. And you know what's interesting? More and more people are asking how I'm doing, which I receive that. I don't get that a lot. So when people do that, I really cherish the moment. So I appreciate it. I actually spent some time out of town, but I did some work because I loved working at that time of the year because there's less distractions. So there's things I can get done and there's less interruptions. So in the next few days, things are starting to get crazy, crazy again. So I took advantage, but I did take some downtime. Had a lot of good food, not too much, but a lot of good food over the holiday. Actually spent some time in Montreal, which was nice, and had experience taking their their new rapid transit system, which is
Oh,
very nice. And yeah, but it was good, and it was just a really nice time. It was a really nice time, and want to say to everyone who's watching this platform also, thank you for your continuous support. One of the things we do celebrate. Well, we're going to start with a review of 2025 in a few months, so I'll hold it off till then. But yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a nice time, and it didn't go too fast, which was good.
nice. And I'm glad to hear you healthy. And I mean, we're going to talk about how hot this 2026 is starting, but let us hope that we can be well as best as possible and, see each other next year.
Yo, well,
Go
this
fast.
year,
Hey, go fast.
we are definitely going to see each other this way. If there's the way we got to do it, we just got to do it because we just have to take the attitude. Don't get good, get done. We have to get done, get things done in the upcoming year. So looking forward to growing with Cesar. Ah, and guess who's already in the room? You're the president of your fan club.
Uh, Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Look at
Always a
this.
pleasure. Thank you.
Got a message on the screen for us.
Thank you, Michelle.
That is fantastic. Good to have you here as always, Michelle. We're not going to spend too much time intro because there's definitely one major thing to talk about. We got a number of things to share. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a bit of a break, and when we come back, we'll be back in about 30 seconds. We come back, we'll do some housekeeping, and then we'll get into a number of things, past, present, and future. So hold on, and we'll be back in 30 seconds on Black Canada Talking.
Watch Primetime Saturdays on Saturdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, where Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lalaki try to make sense of the nonsense in American politics and culture.
Watch The Morning Vibe live on Mondays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern, where Dr. Vibe and Ryan Knight discuss important subjects between themselves or have conversations with people who you need to know about.
We are back, and Cesar will be back in just a moment, but that's okay. He'll be with us. There he is. He is back. So let's do some housekeeping. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. So subscribe and hit the notification button. Also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Substack. Also, if you want to advertise your business product or service on any of the platforms I'm a part of, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And can't forget Dr. Tachi, Indie Soup Media, independent content creators platform based out of Florida in the United States, 28,000 YouTube subscribers in a little over 2 years of programming. And I'm very happy to be part of that with my content. And I sit on the advisory board. And then finally, if you want to get in touch with Cesar, you can email him present@rootsandculturecanada.com. And then Facebook, Cesar Remy Emery. And let's start off with our first conversation topic, 2025 in review. What would you like to share about the past, Cesar? We can't hear you, Cesar.
Oh, I am sorry.
There we go.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we cannot start a new year without reflecting on the past one, right? And regarding 2025, and I don't think we need to be long on this, but it is undeniable that 2025 came out with challenges. And by challenges, I think many can see me talk about the Trump 2.0 term, and for Canadians, the tariffs that came with it. But I think the biggest story, unlike, for example, Time Magazine putting uh, the tech bros of the Elon Musk, etc., as Elon Musk, Sam Altman, etc., as men of the year. I think it's more about the shifting of geopolitics into a new order. It is, and of course, everything that we will talk about, it's always tied, notably to our last topic, but it is the switching of this geopolitical order, which has become or is, it always was, but it's just more evident that it's more predatory. And when you look at, for example, Canada, it is, I think we can say, the end of a certain Canadian naivete in terms of looking at Big Brother America uh, more and more as, you know, the Trump America talking of Canada as the 51st state. I think that was really an electroshock to Canadian consciousness. Of course, we know how there are Canadians who are in support of this. We have Canadians who wish they were the 51st state, but by large and majority, for most Canadians, it was not only a shock, the tariffs, but also this rhetoric, which may have seemed jokingly, but truly is becoming more and more real, more and more scary slash dangerous. Let's not forget that 200 years ago, the United States, new nation, uh, tried in the war 1812 to conquer Canada, and they were pushed back by the Canadian slash British and indigenous armies, including freed blacks. 200 years later, it's a very different context. It's not exactly the same type of weapons. Uh, it's a different global world. Of course, we cannot forget the situation in terms of Europe and Ukraine. And uh, I don't want to minimize it, but when we see all the monies that are given, for example, for Ukraine, it is understandable that in light of affordability, the cost of life, and so many challenges, many people have grown unsupportive of the Ukrainian plight. And it is unfair to Ukraine, but we cannot pretend not to understand why. Gaza, the situation in Gaza, I mean, where's the peace deal? Where's the peace deal in Gaza when people are still taking on, basically being bombed, still dying, and right now it is winter over there? I saw about people being flooded in their tents. And this does not minimize what happens in Haiti, but also what is happening in the world's largest humanitarian crisis, aka Sudan. Sudan, which truly uh, has those natural resources such as oil, but also gold, etc. But in Sudan, you have a conflict which is truly a multi-nation conflict, but also has underlyings of race, religion involved. Uh, it's that tragic. This what is happening over there, and it absolutely does not get the coverage. I mean, what's happening in Sudan, in Haiti, in Congo, don't get the coverage that what happens in Ukraine, but also in Palestine, and to be quite honest, in the Western world, what happens to uh, Israelis and Jewish people does not get the same coverage as what happens to non-whites, as in Ukraine, and non-Jewish people. Let's be careful. It is understandable. Doesn't matter proximity, right? But that proximity, what message does it send to other people in terms of the value in humanity? Um, I'm not trying to paint everything so negatively. When we look at the environment, China keeps making leaps and bounds. There was an article, I believe, that came out talking about how China in 6 months planted, I think, more solar panels or renewable energy than the US in, I think, 50 or 60 years. That's very impressive, as we do remember just a few years ago, Beijing being one of the most polluted cities in the world. So, indeed, China can be a role model in regards to renewable energy, and as it shows to other nations out there. There are many things we can talk about and many things that we can also address, and but I just want to say how, in regards to the next topic, Pan-Africanism, and also, of course, Trump and Venezuela, 2025, truly a precursor. As I was saying many times, Dr. Vibe, on your show, it's gonna be a hot summer, a hot winter as well, and we are still in winter.
I also want to add another thing that happened. We had a new prime minister. Right? Like we had a gentleman who had never served any sort of political office within because of 47. One of the main reasons that he's in office is because of 47. But the thing is, we have to realize we had a a really, really brand new prime minister in Mr. Carney, who had no experience in political office.
Well, I would relativize the no experience in political office as having been uh, governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, which are political positions. Just, I mean, definitely economics, but at that level, you cannot do you cannot be a high level public servant without being involved in politics. At the same time, having been an advisor to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, also definitely has him, like, he didn't have both feet in politics, but he definitely had one solid foot across the door of politics. Um, it is interesting, as you mentioned him, that the minority government that he got is on the verge of getting that additional MP, likely from the conservative, that would give them not only majority status, but would really push uh, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre, who had lost his seat in the federal elections and is due end of this month for
Yes, you are right.
leadership evaluation,
You are
right?
right.
So it makes it quite interesting to say the least. But Canadian politics right now are very much being overshadowed by whatever happens in regard to this Trump administration, and
Mhm.
it's across the board. It is across the board. Look. when we talk about 2025 in review, let's be honest. Donald Trump wanted to be reelected in order to avoid jail, but he has always made it clear that he wanted to put his mark on history. He has succeeded beyond, I think, even his wildest dreams, in terms of which I don't think the history of probably any country, or I can't think of many countries, for the year 2025 cannot be written without a mention of Trump.
True.
Like, you
Very
know, for an attention seeker, what can you ask more? There are
100%.
countries, there are
No,
people in my 4 year my
100%.
4-year-old daughter knows who Donald Trump is.
Yeah, 100%. He's a cheat, and he's putting his name everywhere and on everything from the Kennedy Center. He wants to release some money denominations with his picture on it. It's all over the place, but that will be very, very interesting on when it comes. But I didn't want to leave out, the electing of a new prime minister in this country, though it was impacted directly or indirectly by what went on in the United States.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so what we're going to do is, before we get to our next topic, we're going to show a little video about it. So here's our intro.
Pan-Africanism in 2026 is more than a legacy, it's a living movement. 80 years after the historic 1945 Manchester Congress, its call for unity and liberation still echoes, celebrated through global festivals and academic events. Recent Africa Day and Liberation Day gatherings have reignited demands for justice, reparations, and solidarity across the continent and diaspora. Intellectual hubs like the African Leadership Center and the African Public Square are connecting youth, scholars, and advocates worldwide. Now, the 2026 International Dialogue Conference in Benin marks a shift from ideas to action, focusing on education, policy, and real-world projects.
All right, so with that intro, our next conversation topic is Pan-Africanism in 2026. Go for it, Cesar.
First of all, congrats on the video. It is important for people
You're welcome.
to understand and remember that Pan-Africanism is not a movement of yesterday or some woke thing per se. Pan-Africanism, in many ways, has been present for at least 200 years, aka 1804, with the slave revolt in Haiti. And allow me to correct myself when I say slave. The kidnapped Africans revolt in Haiti, aka the shaking of the world order by enslavement of the black men, women, and child, daring to say, are we not free? Are we not equal? Are we not a man, a woman, or a child, instead of just a beast of burden? So when we look at 200 years later, over 200 years later, let us be honest. In regards to Pan-Africanism, there is no Pan-Africanism without Haiti. And just 3 years ago, January 1st, Haiti basically Subjumu Day, National Day. The state of Haiti is dire. The aspect of the gangs, but also foreign involvement to further destabilize the civil society, because Haiti does have a civil society. Haiti does have educated people, but the level of corruption is, it's catastrophic. But further to that, we cannot forget the largest humanitarian crisis in Sudan. As I mentioned before, the conflict in Gaza and Ukraine are far more covered than what's happening in Sudan. But as per the United Nations, it is the largest humanitarian crisis going on. But it also speaks, because you know how I talk. It is not just about pointing fingers, it's also about looking at ourselves. We cannot deny that the African Union, as an organization, is failing the continent and failing the diaspora. We have to be honest. We have to have this conversation. So, Pan-Africanism at a geopolitical level, where the African Union can only be compared to, example, the European Union, It doesn't stand. It doesn't stand. The largest, arguably richest, and most populous black country in the world, aka Nigeria, is a giant in clay feet. We just saw, we hear so many stories from kidnapped children, school age children by um, Muslim terrorists, notably killing Christians. There's a lack of safety, and I can already see many Nigerians coming to mention how, oh no, this happens in the north, is because no, there's such unequal wealth redistribution, but also such level of corruption along alienation, aka uh, Africans and by extent blacks, who have been brainwashed by foreign ideologies, namely Islam and Christianity, coming from white Arab Muslims, just as from white European Christians, that it creates a state of constant tension in African countries where those two religions collide. We have to have this honest conversation. And when I say this, let me give a perfect example. The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, has closed over 10,000 churches in Rwanda. Yes, Brother Vibe, 10,000 or more. I remember there's 10,000. I can't remember if it's 10,000 or more than 10,000. He has closed uh, so many of these evangelical churches, these, in French, we say Église de Réveil, these Baptist evangelical churches, which are scamming the people, which are literally suffocating the people with the notions of hope in the afterlife of a white Jesus. Meanwhile, the real work and life is right here on earth in the present. These are challenges to Pan Africanism. These are challenges in a continent in which progress, and we can talk about, yes, Nigeria, Senegal. Let's not forget the countries of the Maghreb. Let's not forget about Central African countries, but it's always um, curved, limited by other ongoing realities. I am born in Cameroon, and yet we are in 2026. The Cameroonian president has been re-elected for the eighth time with a mandate to be in power till he's 99 years old. It is ridiculous. Since 1982, everybody understands. Everybody understands. It's a mockery of democracy. And I am not an advocate that Africans slash black people do democracy as per Europeans and whites, but we have to be honest. It's a mockery. We have the Maghreb, where right now you have in North Africa, in Morocco, the African Cup of Nations, so the continental competition in soccer, football. And not far from there in Libya, you still have an ongoing civil war that's been raging since 2011. We look at South Africa. Oh, yeah, South Africa is part of the BRICS and everything you want, but my gosh, we hear terrible news coming from South Africa in regards to not only insecurity, but also the very state running of things, the level of corruption, etc., etc. And of course, how not to talk about Congo? How not to talk about this country, which technically could be and should be the richest country on earth as per its natural resources, aka its underground, and yet we have a Congo where it's too easy to just say Rwanda is stealing the wealth of Congo as if it just started with Rwanda a few years ago. No, we have a Congo that is so mismanaged. The president of Congo, Mr. Felix Tshisekedi, goes to uh, take the knee to APAC, aka the Jewish lobby in the United States, and goes to bang his head on the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. Meanwhile, where is the Jewish leader who went to commemorate the dead in Congo since 1997, where it's estimated there's been 10 million dead? No one, nowhere. It's tragic. It's as tragic as when I speak of Congo, I always talk about, those who are sapologues, sapology, the African, truly Central, and to some extent Western African tradition of being overly well dressed, aka black men. There's a few women trying to, uh, bring some gender equality there, but black men wearing Western brands, Western luxury brands, in terms of color matching and etc., basically looking like peacocks while the fridge and the bank account are empty, but they want to look good. We're talking about a Congo in which we have Congolese singers filling up stadiums, just as Congolese pastors filling up stadiums, and yet, in Kinshasa, capital of Congo, they got floods because the garbage in the streets clog the drains or sewers. So they end up having floods in the houses and on the streets. Come on, 2026, we cannot give ammunition to those who are racist and see Africa as backwards. We give them ammunition so easily. So it's still that, that margin in which, to give perspective, we're in 2026, and yet, for perspective, we still have an African continent where over 50% of women in countries like Nigeria, Senegal, just to name those two countries, but it concerns all countries uh, in sub-Saharan Africa, aka Black Africa. We have large segment of the population, overwhelmingly women, but not just men as well, who bleach their skin. Over 50% in some countries. We are in 2026 will bleach the skin. And this phenomenon, Dr. Vab, you know about this. Jamaica, cake soap. Look at India, blacks in India. We forget to talk about
Yeah.
blacks in India. You
This
know,
this hardens back to a number of years ago. I had the privilege of meeting and spending some time with Bill Duke, longtime veteran producer and actor, black gentleman,
yes, yes.
right? And
Yeah.
another gentleman named C. Chansonberry. And this is going back a while. And they produced a film called Dark Girls. And what it was all about was it was a small phenomenon there, but it's even bigger now on how a number of black women around the world would bleach or not want to be dark. They want to be
Yeah.
lighter.
Lighter.
And C. Chansonberry produced the second documentary of it. But if you get a chance to watch that documentary, either one, Dark Girls 1 or Dark Girls 2, what Cesar is chatting about is not new. It is not new. It's been going, and even before those documentaries released, it's been a challenge in regards to that. Um, Cesar, I want to ask you a question. How can Pan Africanism become more top of mind, or do you think there's opportunity for it to be more top of mind with people who look like us around the world?
100%. I would say, you know, as I like to address the three cancers of the black psyche in being entertainment, consumerism, and religion, aka religions of whites upon black people. I would say, in regard to Pan Africanism, one of the first elements that we must do, and you're going to love this, is to exit from symbolism. Symbols matter, of course, but Dr. Vibe, let's be honest. This is not even a criticism to white institutions such as white schools. It's a criticism to black families themselves. Outside of Black History Month, how many black families and black households have black consciousness being addressed in the home? Today, I had a conversation with my 4 year old daughter. Yes, she was asking questions about Jesus, and I told her about Kemet, Kemetic spirituality, the Mat, and I told her about the Jengu, the Sawa spirituality, my seashell earrings, and my traditional hat. We don't need to wait for Black History Month. We don't need to wait for Kwanzaa. And by Kwanzaa, how many black families, notably African Americans, celebrate, acknowledge Kwanzaa, acknowledge Subjumu? recognize Emancipation Day. We don't need to wait for February. We need all year long to have black consciousness in the same way that any week, Dr. Vibe, any week you turn on TV, flip channels, you will see something addressing the Holocaust, Jewish history. You will see something every week addressing white European history. And that's a good thing. I watch it. Was it yesterday or 2 nights ago? I was watching about the Hitler Youth. I was watching about the Hitler Youth. One of my opa, so father to one of my aunts by marriage, is German. He was an opa. He was a Hitler Youth. He's 92 years old. 92 years old, sorry. So let us always keep our mind open to learning about others, but also learning about ourselves. And it's not about Black History Month or Kwanzaa, it's year long. That's how we cultivate our sense of identity and pride. But instead, what do we keep seeing? Yesterday, I discovered there's some TV show. I don't know what channel it is, and I'm not trying not to mention the channel. I really don't know. I saw this on Facebook. They had some show about, how do you call this thing? The BBL, Brazilian butt lift, some web show or TV show about the BBL. It's I overly criticize this show, Pop the Balloon, because it's not a serious show. But yes, you can have a couple there that finds um, common attraction, sure, or interest or love. Who cares? But still, entertainment is driving our community far too much, in which most black people, and we know this here on this side of the ocean, most black people were talking about Puffy and his legal affairs with Cassie and, you know, prostitution or male escorts, whichever, baby oil, lotion. Then they had a conversation regarding black consciousness. We know this about our people. And this is one of the things in which we cannot talk about Pan-Africanism. We cannot talk about, example, uh, the three countries of the Sahel region, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. We cannot talk of supporting them, supporting the independence, the Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X of the world, without looking at ourselves in terms of what we can do better. It is not just about putting, such as I have right here in my office, to put this beautiful representation of some of our leaders, but not live to these ideals on a daily basis, such as being the community dad, such as uh, I look at some of our brothers who are, how do you call this thing again? In the red pill, black red pill movement, etc. To what extent can you claim to be black and proud if you're always jumping at any occasion to insult and trash black women? Inversely, to what extent can you say that you're black and proud if you're always attacking and bashing black men? At the same time, at the same time, does being a black man or black woman in an interracial relationship make someone a traitor to the race? Of course not. Of course not. The Pan-Africanism that I have is one in which all black, all of our people, and when I say our people, you know me, Dr. Vibe, those black people in India are our brothers and sisters. They've been brainwashed being even darker than us and saying that they're not black. That's brainwashing. We forget about our brothers and sisters, indigenous of Australia, falsely called Aborigines. Aborigines, English, abnormal. Those indigenous people of Australia, but also from the Pacific, Moana, those are our brothers and sisters. My Pan Africanism is global, but it is not a Pan Africanism in which we just point the finger and denounce the evil whites, the evil Arabs, the evil Jews, the evil Chinese, the evil aliens. No. This is cliche black victimization that has to stop because it corrupts the mind and it corrupts our youth. Instead, We look at ourselves, we build the strength, the resilience, we look at how we can work within, and we always open a hand. We can work with others. There is that expression, black people have no friends and no allies. Guess what? They shouldn't. The nature of allyship is by interest, and respect comes from you gaining respect by you imposing yourself from within.
There's more we could get into, but we've got a whole rest of the year to get into that. So we'll leave it at that, because one of the topics I want Cesar and I'd expound on is this whole area of we not liking each other. Just like, you know, African blacks not getting on with North American blacks, but we'll save that till rest of the year. That's a whole conversation topic.
If you don't mind, I will just mention this one little thing.
Yeah.
When you say we don't like each other, and you're right, there is an entire business and interest that's there to make black people destroy one another. Let us not forget, in a world of white supremacy, the most dangerous thing are conscious black people will come together, work together, and succeed to become role models. It becomes dangerous because it becomes a lot harder to brainwash them and to get them to participate in their own destruction. It becomes harder to sell the blonde hair, blue eye Barbie to the children, just as it becomes harder to see them going to church and to hear slave obey your master, just as to go to the mosque and to hear a vision of Jannah, aka Islamic paradise, in which the people are white. I know our Muslim brothers and sisters will be in denial. I'm a former Muslim. I know our Christian brothers and sisters will be in denial. I am a former Christian as well. A conscious black person will become further involved in the community, becomes truly a reflection of the glory of our deserving ancestors as activists. They build the courage, they become more respected. This is pretty much something I've said many times about how me wearing African clothes at work in the office is not to impress anyone, but I'm African. Regional director. So when I have public servants of African as Caribbean background, seeing that, the shock to them, but then eventually the courage and the comfort for them to come to work wearing African slash traditional clothes. It feeds into the identity and the sense of self that they don't have to wear that mask. They can take off the code switching. They can take off the white passing. They can dare to be black. And surprise, most white people will respect you. Most white people, as far as I know, as far as I experience, most white people don't wake up thinking, what can I do today that's racist? But it's too many black people who have internalized inferiority complexes, internalized racism, internalized religious trauma, and thus put on masks to hide their blackness.
All right. We are going to get to our final conversation piece. And the final one, I don't think you'll be surprised what it's about, but let's do an intro video.
In a stunning pre-dawn raid, U.S. forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, in Caracas. The dramatic operation, codenamed Operation Absolute Resolve, involved over 150 aircraft, airstrikes, and a rapid extraction to a U.S. warship. Both are now en route to New York to face criminal charges, including narco-terrorism. The U.S. plans to temporarily administer Venezuela and use its oil reserves to finance the occupation. The move has sparked international outrage, with countries like Russia and Cuba condemning it, while Venezuela's opposition hails it as a moment of liberation. What do you think of this unprecedented action?
All right. And it's interesting. We've been talking about this over the last few weeks, and it finally went down yesterday. U.S. captures Maduro and wife in daring raid. They are on in New York right now, and probably sometime this week, the week of January 4th, 2025, they're going to be in a U.S. court arraigned on a number of charges.
Dr.
So, Doc,
Vibe?
last time we did Black Canada Talking, we talked about we chat about the subject, and one of the things I asked you was US going to go to war with Venezuela? He said you can't underestimate anything. So it went down. What are your thoughts about this subject?
Dr. Vibe, let me give you the latest info that I have. Nicolas Maduro will be in court tomorrow, noon time, Eastern time. So it's because I saw this on the French news in which they were saying 6 p.m. Paris times, which translates to noon our time. Dr. Vibe, there's so much to say about this, so much to say. Hold on a second. This is what I was looking for. I think I have it right here. Yes, I do. I have this book. I may have shown you this book before. I encourage our brothers and sisters and allies to get this book. This book, before I show the book, it's a little bit dated, 2007. But the very title of the book and the subtitle speaks volume. Are we Rome? The fall of an empire and the fate of America. There is so much to say about this Donald Trump slash CIA Delta forces intervention in Venezuela capturing Nicolas Maduro and his wife. First, on a light note, I, I, I'm glad I remember because I'm like, I must say this on air. The effectiveness of the operation kind of reminds me, and I'm sure Dr. Vibe, you're going to agree with this. Remember those Chuck Norris movies, Delta Force, back in the 80s?
Yep.
When America was seen as invincible, Chuck Norris is doing a karate kick to everything. These are the special forces that we need to have if the aliens come. So before, and I know many people will be like, what is this guy saying? Like he's supporting America? What kind of Pan-Africanism is this? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is if aliens were to invade planet Earth, let's be honest, we need a strong and well organized American force. That said, let's be serious. Dr. Vibe, it goes back to what I was telling last year. In 2024, the four men that are blamed for Trump, one of them, Justice Roberts, who has given Trump immunity on anything and everything he does. Let's be fair to Donald Trump. He is not the first president to go bomb a foreign country without Congress approval, but he has a certain way, an imperial way which he has given a name. He gave it a name. Remember in that interview, in that press conference, where we talk about the Monroe Doctrine, Trump called it the Donald Doctrine. But it's different today than in the time of Obama and even Bush, because many people are talking about the similarities with the Iraq War and the pretense of weapons of mass destruction, where here we have the pretense of cocaine as drugs. Meanwhile, because of course, the hypocrisy, going to war against Venezuela to capture Maduro, meanwhile releasing former president of Honduras, if I'm not mistaken, President Hernandez, was a drug lord.
Yep.
But even the creation of this notion of narco trafficant, drug trafficker, Pablo Escobar at a presidential level. Look, I am not here to support Nicolas Maduro. Like I always say, Don't put me in the left or the right in terms of politics. I'm a Pan-Africanist, and even among Pan-Africanists, I oppose religion. I support Black LGBTQ. Even most Pan-Africans will be like, no, I'm not siding with this guy. However, this is not about supporting Nicolas Maduro. Nicolas Maduro, let's call it what it is. He is not Hugo Chavez. He is not Hugo Chavez, but the United States have put sanctions on Venezuela for years in order to destabilize it, in order to foment dissension against the regime. Let's not forget, very important here, back in 2002, the United States were behind an attempt to create a coup to remove then president and supporter of Pan-Africanism, Hugo Chavez. The ideology of Chavismo is still very much present in Venezuela. So now, when we have the United States conducting this very imperialistic operation, what was his name? Ike, former President Dwight D. Eisenhower,
Right.
who had warned about the American military-industrial complex. Even the suspicion that maybe one of the reasons why JFK was assassinated was because he was to denounce it. Truly, this is what we are seeing. What we are seeing in terms of which Trump, more than Obama and even Bush, even Clinton, etc., coming forward, and he said it in a press conference. This is not but Cesar. This is not some analyst. No, Trump said it himself. He kept talking about oil. He wasn't talking about democracy. This, this inspires me to the words of our great leader, Malcolm X. Brother Malcolm X, who talked about the chickens coming home to roost. Because you can only go so far in the aggression and oppression of others, notably in your area, to surprise yourself that it may blow back in your face. A reminder of September 11 in terms of American geopolitics. In no way do we condone or support what happened on September 11, just as what happened on September 11 in the United States or October 7, 2023 in Israel. But you cannot surprise yourself of certain things happening when you have a certain type of geopolitics. In the same way, when I take this book, who eventually brought down Rome? The same barbarians that they had been trying to oppress and conquer for centuries. They eventually brought it back to Rome and made Rome pay dearly. They broke Rome. They killed thousands. In the same way here, we're talking about the United States. So many points. This is beyond Venezuela and even beyond oil. Of course, everybody is right to mention that, as Trump said it himself. But it's part of that larger conflict. There's a term for it. Thucydides' trap, in reference to the was it the second, I think the third century conflict between rising, was it the third? I can't remember exactly, but in antique time, rising Athens, yes, sorry, the third century, rising Athens and its navy, military, and economy versus Sparta, which was a military, overwhelmingly land warfaring nation. The fear of a rising challenger against the hegemon, Sparta then, America today, versus China, and how it can lead to conflicts. You don't need to look as far back as over 2,000 years ago. World War I and World War II are very much what happened in there. Great Britain and Germany in regards to capitalism and global hegemony. Great Britain and France in revenge to Germany regarding the 1870 Prussian War. Germany tried to be that new nation to lead the world, to come at the forefront. They ended up annihilating one another, leading to a new world in which Russia, by extension the USSR, and America, the United States, became the two global powers. This is ultimately about China because you look at Venezuela. Before that, it was Panama, the Panama Canal. And of course, it's also to put the chokehold on Cuba, aka another regime change, and with Trump signaling that he would be willing to do such to other nations, aka bombing Nigeria, bombing other countries, Iran, etc. You name it. Uh, and again, let's be fair. It's not as if Obama was the peaceful president. Congrats for killing Osama bin Laden, but this is very much American imperialism in full effect with that hypocrisy for everyone and anyone to see. And here, it's undeniable. It's undeniable that the Trump voters, aka MAGA, got fooled, caught in the logic of America first. America first doesn't go back to Trump. It goes to about 100 years ago, the 1920s, 1930s of American isolationism, aka we don't even participate in foreign wars. At the very most, is to keep the American sphere of influence. But the American sphere of influence included starting wars. I think this was in the 50s against in Guatemala, a regime change over Dr. Vibe. Hear me, the price of a commodity. Guess which commodity, Dr. Vibe? A commodity on the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Bananas. In the 1950s, the United States went to war, created regime change, a coup over the price of bananas as it has an impact on breakfast. I mean, it's what can we say? What can we say?
Do I have your permission to read something? Take about 90 seconds to read something.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so this article is from The Atlantic today, and I'm going to read the first 3 paragraphs. In a telephone interview this morning, President 47, I don't use his name, issued a not so veiled threat against new Venezuelan leader Delcy Rodriguez, saying, quote, if she doesn't do what's right, she's going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro, referring to Nicolas Maduro, now residing in a New York City jail. 47 made clear that he would not stand for Rodriguez's defiant position of the armed U.S. intervention that resulted in Maduro's capture. During our call, that's the Atlantic, 47, who just arrived at his golf club in West Palm Beach, was in evident good spirits and reaffirmed to the reporter that Venezuela may not be the last country subject to American intervention. Quote, we do need Greenland, absolutely, unquote, he said, describing the island, a part of Denmark, a NATO ally, as, quote, surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships, unquote, and discussing Venezuela's future. He signaled a clear shift away from his previous distaste for regime change and nation building, rejecting the concerns of his many in his MAGA base. Quote, rebuilding there and regime change, anything you want to call it, is better than what you have right now, unquote. Can't get any worse, unquote. The severe tone he took with Rodriguez contrasted with praise he had offered her yesterday, hours after U.S. military forces attacked Caracas and captured Maduro and his wife Celia Flores for criminal prosecution. 47 said in a news conference after the attack that Rodriguez has privately indicated a willingness to work with the United States, which 47 declared would temporarily, quote, run, unquote, her country. So I just wanted to read that update.
And let's not forget here, Greenland, if I'm not mistaken, has natural resources, notably rare earth. Nigeria has oil, but you look at the map, what's on top of Nigeria? The 3 Sahel countries, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, will have called in Russia and China, not only to boot the French former colonizers, but also to develop themselves. And they've been doing great, way greater than expected, with notably population support. This American giant hegemony that is falling is basically displaying the behaviors of the wounded animal who was the king of the jungle. Strike harder, strike more, remind everyone who's the boss. But what usually tends to happen when you destabilize a country, because now people will say, Cesar, you are exaggerating. Didn't you see the videos of people cheering during all that? How did people in Iraq reacted at first in 2003? They celebrated. How did people react at first in Libya? They celebrated. The celebration means nothing when a few weeks and months later, especially years later, as factually documented by American interventions in Latin America, just as in the world, America tends to fail in terms of the after program. The initial strike or conquest, of course, what a surprise. It's the USA, the number one military in the world. What is it? What's the defense defense. What's the war budget? The Department of War, as he renamed it. In the US, it's borderline at $1 trillion. Because people have to remember when in Congress, in the State of the Union, usually they mention between 750 to $900 billion. That's not necessarily counting contracts and even the use of mercenary forces, such as in regards to Venezuela. The conversation is being held in terms of the exploitation of those oil fields. So it's one thing to have the resource, as for example, Africa has a resource. It's another thing to extract, but also to do the finishing work, the refinery work of the resources. Example, Senegal right now, but also Mali. You look at Botswana regarding diamond. The real wealth is not, I give the example of diamond because that might be easier for people to understand. The real wealth is not finding the rock. The real wealth is after the work is done, the cost of the rock. It's the same as a laptop or a cell phone. The materials themselves cost way less than the unit that you resell. So this is basically where we're having that it is talked about that American companies such as what is it, ExxonMobil, Texaco, etc., may go. We know Chevron is already there in Venezuela, but they may go to Venezuela with their own special security forces, aka mercenaries. And when you look at, for example, what happened, I think it was in Iraq, mercenaries were paid 3 to 4 times more than the American soldier. So there is an entire business in which each and everyone is looking at making money / looting off Venezuela under the claims of removing this brutal dictator. The question is not about Maduro being a dictator. The answer is yes, as was Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. The question is the aftermath. The question becomes when Trump talks such to Rodriguez, who was the vice president of Nicolas Maduro, he's not talking about the Nobel laureate, Miss Machado, of the opposition party. It's in the same way as when he talks about Greenland. Greenland, which belongs to Denmark, a NATO nation. What's Denmark going to do to stop America if he wants to invade Greenland? What's the population of Greenland and the indigenous? What's even the European Union are on tiptoes? The French, it was revealed. President Macron, back in 2022, condemned Vladimir Putin's special operation on Ukraine. But now, he was borderline applauding Donald Trump because Maduro is a brutal dictator. The question is not whether Maduro is a dictator. The question goes to the United Nations notion that you are not allowed to invade another country as it destroys the geopolitical slash international order in order to maintain peace. This, by default, is an illegal intervention. What Trump is doing is imperialism slash American colonization 101, as they did then with Haiti. People forget Haiti was occupied by the United States, if I'm not mistaken, for about 15 or 19 years. 19 years, yes. 1915 to 1934. And even when we go to the end of the 19th century with President Theodore Roosevelt, the Philippines in the American Spanish War were occupied. So this is a continuation of American imperialism now in the age of one who constantly seeks the attention, seeks the limelight, from The Apprentice to whatever Miss World Beauty pageant to now being president. And what happens to the Epstein files? What happened? I mean, there is.
A lot of people
I
say
seem,
that
I seem like
47
I'm
is
going all
whatever
over
he
the place,
can to
but let me just tell you.
deter from that getting into the news. So who knows?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it is. We must have this conversation also in terms of what will happen in a country of Venezuela where, as disliked as Maduro was disliked. Sure, Chavez was loved by many, and as such, Chavismo does have supporters. Are Venezuelans, many of them, going to just sit by while the country gets looted by America? We saw what happened in the in Iraq. We discovered the term called IEDs, improvised explosion devices, that the insurgents, and we say insurgents, these are the locals, the nationals, these are the former police members, these are family members who basically lost family members to the Americans, just as back in 1994, Black Hawk Down. The Americans were welcomed with smiles, flags of America. Netflix have the documentary there. But eventually the situation turned sour and the population turned against the USA. I worry because with this Donald Trump in the White House, I will use the words of Kamala Harris. I think she said that Donald Trump was a very unserious man, but you have to take his words very seriously because he sits at a level of great power or something. A serious man, but you have to take his words very seriously because of the power that goes behind his words. And indeed, he's using it. Marco Rubio said it. This president, was it Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth, talking about the foreign, the Secretary of State and the state of the Department of War, talking about.
Yes, Hexa is the head of the Department of War. It used to be the Department of Defense. Now they call it. They've renamed the Department of War.
Yeah, and the most unqualified cabinet letting the world knows with this president, if you F around, you're going to find out. Whew, many people can't wait to the midterms.
Well, that's going to be interesting. One last thing, because I know you got to go. How do you feel the average American is thinking about this?
Let's be honest. There is an expression I remember from back in my 20s, which was Americans discovered the geography of the world in relation to American imperialism, aka, there was a time everybody was talking about Iraq. And in terms of the black community, this is where we got the expression Chirac, Chicago, Iraq, in terms of the gang violence. The average American, and I say this from the comfort of my home here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, I think the reality for the average American is still very much American, aka, what's the price of oil? The price for groceries? Can I get a new car? Can Can I still get those tickets to go entertain myself at the baseball, hockey, football, basketball game? Can I still, to use Donald Trump's language, can I buy my daughter $37? This billionaire talked about you don't need to buy your children $37 as if anyone actually buy the kids $37. No, the average American, but here I really would focus on the Trump voters. To which point do they reach that fork on the road where they ask themselves whether they've been conned yet again? As Trump came in saying that he would end this habit of foreign wars, America first. They're being conned, or they knowingly, willfully, with all the facts that are presented that the entire world can see, choose to keep supporting a chronic liar, an insurrectionist, a man who has been found guilty of, I don't want to use the wrong term, but I think it's statutory sexual assault / rape. I did say insurrectionist, fraudster, aka Letitia James, the case against her having been rejected as non-solid at all. And now you have this imperial Trump going to war really to boost his own ego and his own finances, because even the tariffs have not been benefiting the American population. The gifts, such as whatever the Qatar plane and so many others, aka the Trump crypto, and even the talks about the, I think it's $100,000 H1 visa.
Yes.
It's not benefiting the American population. So you will have diehard MAGA, as we had on January 6th, risking their life for the cause. But the question becomes, at what point are they going to wake up? Because ultimately, I think we can agree there is not a country that will have the nerves to try to assassinate or kidnap Donald Trump. And I'm not calling for such. I am not calling for such. When Charlie Kirk got assassinated, we can disagree passionately, but never into violence and calling for the murder or death or assassination of anyone because we disagree with them in words. However, politics leads to real life consequences. And just as we saw in January 6th, I keep leaning towards it. The No Kings protest, and now you see the latest chapter in Trump's whatever history book is the Venezuela thing. It will be Americans who will have to rid the world of Donald Trump, because this Congress is useless, the Supreme Court is useless, Joe Biden was useless, Merrick Garland was useless, I forget his name, not Chuck Schumer, the former Republican senator, I forget his name. They were all useless. They were even complicit. Because if he was Black Donald Trump, I've said it before, Dr. Vibe, you know where I'm going saying this. If he was a Black Donald Trump on January 6th, at the end of the day, he either would have been jailed or he would have been shot. And we all know that. We all know that. I dare anyone to challenge me that if January 6th had been led, the question is no longer if a Black man could have been president. Obama was there. So 2016, yeah, Black Donald Trump could have become president. But what doesn't have a precedent is January 6th. If it was a Black Donald Trump, he would have been jailed or killed 100%. So all of these men in power, Mitch McConnell, the Republican senator I was thinking of, Mitch McConnell, all of these men are responsible for the situation that we have now because they enabled him, just as 90 years ago, the leader of a small Bavarian party, you know, Adolf Hitler, did not reach the Bundestag to become chancellor with a strong backing and support from very rich men and very powerful politicians who thought they could control him. This is the absolute similar situation. I showed the book Are We Rome? But the parallels between Trump's America and Hitler's Germany cannot be hidden. They're right in front of us, but many will deny them.
All right. We'll finish off with that. So as always,
I
want
have,
to.
a, I have a few minutes. I have a few minutes. That's fine.
Oh no. Okay. All
I'm
right.
gonna
Then,
go.
all right. So then I want to continue with this conversation topic. Uh, should we in Canada be concerned?
We absolutely should be concerned. And I thank you for asking the question. I'm a little bit embarrassed that I didn't mention that. We absolutely should be concerned. Look, there have been talks about Donald Trump's mental health, talking about stages of dementia, but also in in the position that he's in, very similar to many African leaders, which is anything and everything to stay in power. So we've heard about Trump talk about a third term uh, outside of the Constitution again, but remember, the Supreme Court gave him a green light on anything that he does as president is legal. Canada should be very concerned. When I say very concerned, Dr. Vab, you were asking me, I think in December or November, uh, about the situation in Venezuela. And I said, with this president, anything can happen. What's her name? I forget her first name, but Stephen Miller's wife had, I think, tweeted about Greenland, saying they're coming next. What's Denmark going to do if the US sends a force to take over Greenland? What's Denmark going to do? England and France are not going to go to war against the US, even though they have the nuclear weapons. England and France are not going to go to war against the US to defend Greenland. Nobody's going to go to war to defend Greenland. Russia and China are not going to go to war to defend Greenland. Guess what? What message is he sending to Zelensky, who basically insinuated, well, I guess I can be captured too? What message is he sending to Taiwan in regards to China taking it over by force? What message is he sending to Canadians in regards to Americans? And when I say Americans, I'm really obviously, I don't want to make it seem like all Americans share or agree with Trump actions. We know it's not the case. We saw the No King protests. We saw the elections. We see the Donald Trump's declining a Dr. Vibe 12. This is not the musket that you load and all this thing, or the arc. If an American force crosses the border and decide to take over Canada, so yeah, that's the reality of the world that we live in.
Well, it's
And
interesting
this
you
is
say.
this is this is a reminder for Canada to become less and less reliant on America and truly to become the independent nation it claims to be. Because Canada has a lot of potential, natural resources, and many allies, if not business partners, it can do business with, than to have so relied on America. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, if I'm not mistaken, it was him, he had said, this is a difficult moment, but in 30, 40 years, Canada will be thankful to this president for having forced it to enter the adult stage of its independence as a nation.
So just to
Not a
update
problem.
you, you're trying to remember the lady's name is Katie Miller, wife
Katie
of
Miller, yeah.
47's Deputy Chief Staff Stephen Miller. Today put the contentiously altered image of the Danish Autonomous Territory, which is Greenland, on her X feed late Saturday, hours after the U.S. military operation against Venezuela. Her post had a single word above it: soon.
Yeah.
So in response, Denmark ambassador to the U.S. Jesper Moller Sorensen reacted on Sunday with his own post saying, quote, "We expect full respect for the territorial integrity," unquote, of Denmark, above a link to Katie Miller's image.
In the predatory world of geopolitics that we live in, aka realpolitik, the strong use force, the weak use diplomacy and law. This is why the European Union speaks about human rights and international order, while the strong use other means. That's it. That's my word, Dr. Vibe.
All right, we are done. That is a wrap. I want to say thank you as always to Cesar for taking the most valuable thing in his life, his time, to hang out with us again. If you want to get in touch with him, email president@rootsandculturecanada.com. Also, Facebook Cesar Remy Emery. And then if you want to get a hold of me, or just some few things, subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show as always. One of the celebrations in 2025 finally passed over 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube page. So I know, thank you if you've subscribed already. If you haven't, please do if you're up to it. And also, I know a lot of people watch this, but they don't subscribe. So please subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms I'm a part of, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Also, if you want to find out more about me, go to taplink.cc/the drvibeshow. And then finally, you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and the Dr. Vibe website, the drvibeshow.com. So as always, it may be a new year, but we always end it off with like this: live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both. And as always, God bless. Be well. Keep the faith. And walk good and make it better. Take care.
Just take a quick moment.
Yeah.
You just introduce yourself. Let Dr. Vibe welcome you into the show. As I told you, Dr. Vibe.
I welcome. I'm really good to have you here. I didn't want to. You were on a roll. I didn't want to interrupt. You were on a roll, but
In an world created by whites, dominated by whites, run by whites. And you're a billionaire, bro. FYI, I don't. It's probably the first time of the year that I use the word bro.
yes, it is. That's the first time, as long as I've known you, you use it.
My daughter would laugh.
But for many people, the economy ain't great. There we go. I saw that.